Hello, everyone. Welcome to Bartelle's Money Talk. I'm Johnny.
I am Teresa, and if you are feeling financially stuck, if you need some strategies to feel unstuck financially, you need to stay for our video. Mr. Victor, can you introduce yourself for us?
Yes, thank you for having me on the show. It's amazing speaking to both you lovely people. I am Victor Idoko, financial planner. You can also think about me as a wealth strategist. I am also the author of Seven Basic Wealth Strategies. I run my own podcast as well called Elevate Your Wealth, and my goal is just to ensure many people have as much financial literacy so they can get ahead. I think finance is a key thing that many people think is too hard, but you just need to know a few basic things.
That's right.
I agree. But thank you for your introduction, Vic. Really appreciate that. I know you do have a book, and it's called Seven Basic Wealth Strategies. Could you do you have a copy of your book where you can show the audience?
Yes, I do.
All right, and we're going to get into a little bit of that in a few. But before we dive into your book that you have written, we also noticed that you had a great question in your profile, and we kind of want to bring that out before we
Yeah.
actually dive into your book. So one of the questions is that successful people feel stuck financially. So why is that? Why do you think successful people still feel stuck financially?
Yeah, amazing question, Johnny. I think that can be broken down in several parts. So the thing about successful people, they are successful for a reason, right? So they're usually ambitious, they're usually driven. They want to make great things happen. So what happens is they always look at the next goal. They always look at, okay, what is next? How can I make this better? What am I trying to achieve? Versus actually looking as to how far have I come? Okay, and then that's where they get that feeling that, oh well, I'm feeling stuck, I'm feeling unsuccessful, I'm feeling like I'm actually not getting to this goal. So majority of the population will feel that because we humans were usually future focused. We want to think about the next thing. Some people can actually think that far, like 10 years ahead. Others still think like next week or even next day, whatever it is. But we always look at, okay, what we're trying to achieve. This is how far we've come. In a book called The Gap and the Gain, he actually explains this and breaks this down as well, because I talked about how people should always focus about the gain, what you've gained, not the gap, what you're trying to achieve. So that's one of the reasons successful people feel stuck. Another reason as well is generally sometimes they actually want to they want to be in a position, but sometimes you're not there yet. So what happens sometimes is they spend a little bit more than they should, so they kind of keep up with the Joneses, and that's why for successful people they might still look like they're spending a lot. Because think about someone earning good money but spending a little bit more than they should be spending, you're gonna feel stuck. You're gonna feel like you're not really progressing. So that's another thing. So I always encourage people, try to live within your means, and
Yes.
it works for everyone. Even there was an article that came out a while ago about Rihanna almost running out of money. I was like, what, Rihanna? You know, but
Oh,
that was
that.
yeah, but that was just really clear because she makes millions. So
Millions.
the spending, this you can never outspend. Sorry, you can never underspend because there's always something to spend on. So it's definitely getting successful people to think about don't spend too much and focus on how far you've come versus how far you want to go. But obviously keep moving forward.
I like that answer. So
Hmm.
that's what's wrong with a lot of humans, and
Yeah,
I
it
could
is.
be guilty of that. You forget to look back to where you came from as to where you are now. It's always constant. What can I do to do better? What can I do to make more? But where did we come from?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's
thank you
true.
for sharing that. I didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's a very important point.
Yes, yes. And so again, now we're going to get into your book, but everyone loves stories. And I know part of the story, part of the reason why you wrote your book was because you wish you would have known the things then that you know now. So can you tell us a little bit of your backstory?
Okay, yeah, amazing. So I was born in Nigeria, and I was born to mom was a teacher, dad was a soldier, and you can imagine the house was disciplined. You do this, you do that, you're good. You do this and do that, you're definitely in trouble. So it was
We Indian soldiers.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So I grew up in that background. Look, it was fun for me as a middle kid because I got to learn from all the bad things my elders had done, and stay out of trouble, which was good. And then I went to boarding school. So in Nigeria, many people go to boarding school. It's not because we're naughty, just
Uh-huh.
because that's the way the system works. About 80-90% of people go to boarding school. So in boarding school, it was very similar as well. So there was lots of discipline, lots of sequence, lots of structure. And then fast forward about 17 years ago, I moved to Australia, and basically, I because I grew up with structured discipline, it's just been very easy for me to kind of be structured and disciplined in most of the things I did. So I then obviously started studying finance. So I've been studying finance for the last 16 years, not because I'm a bad student. I've passed all my units. I just love it, so, and I learned a lot. So the one thing I've learned about finance is people need to have and build good habits. Okay, the habits are
Mhm.
important to actually using the knowledge. So part of my job is just ensuring I teach people to have good habits, and that's my story as to why I wrote the book as well. Because the book are just basic things, not hard, that people should be doing or be aware of that actually gets them into a solid position down the track. And another person was asking me about this a few days ago. They're like, why did you write a book? It's not you're not really an author, you're not a publisher or whatever. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, I feel professionals should write the books related to the industry. Okay.
Mhm.
I've read lots of financial books, and they're not really written by people that have a long track record of helping people with finances.
Mhm.
So that's another reason I wrote the book. I was like, well, people need to hear from me because this is what we do for clients every day, and these are just basic things that even if I knew this 16 years ago, my life would have been totally different. So that was the journey as to get in here and writing the book.
Wonderful. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
what you want to say?
No, because I know you said you grew up in structure. Did
Yes.
your parents talk about finances when you were young, like around the table or anything?
Yeah, very, very good question. My first memory about investing was when my dad used to get me to open checks back then.
Wow.
I don't know if he did it intentionally. I still need to ask him. I keep forgetting to ask him.
Mhm.
But he got me to open checks and told me to read the numbers to him. So I'll read it out. I'll be like, oh, this is so small. Why are you getting such small amounts? And he was like, he put money somewhere and someone is giving him money. So all of a sudden, and this was when I was probably look 5, 6, not that old. So all of a sudden I knew that okay, you could put money somewhere and you can get money. I just as a kid, it's like, yeah, you could do that. There was no
Mhm.
question. So
Mhm.
all of a sudden, that kind of shaped my understanding of investment. So as I started to understand more as well, I got more confident, and then obviously was able to then be in a position to teach other people. So that was the first memory about investing. My first memory about savings was from my mom. Okay, back then in Nigeria, the culture is you just giving money. If you go as a kid and if you go to someone's house and it's Christmas, whatever, they'll give you a few naira. And I always remember my mom saying, "Hey, let me keep your naira for you. What will happen is we'll keep some. You might need it more later on, so just keep it and then let me know." So all of a sudden, I got used to saving. I'd never spent on anything, and obviously, mom and dad would take care of me, right? So it was easy.
Mhm.
But that was my first memory, and that's when I started building the habit of saving, just putting money aside. You don't know what
Mhm.
you're gonna use it for, just put it aside, just put it aside. So those were the first kind of lessons I got. I know mom's lessons were intentional. I don't know if dad's lessons were intentional, but
But it helped you. And I'm like, someone probably wants to know if I want to know. Now, you were in Nigeria, you went to boarding school. Does that
yeah.
mean that your family was wealthy?
No, no, actually. So what the in Nigeria, right? It's funny and it's a little bit sad because Nigeria is a rich oil country, but the divide is huge. Think about
Um,
places like Dubai and all that. We should be like that, but the divide is huge. Where there are lots of people that are poor, lots of well, not lots, but some people are rich, and then there's a very few middle class. Okay,
uh-huh.
so I'll say we're very lucky to be in that few middle class. So we're definitely not extremely wealthy, and we're not yes at the bottom. But there's a small middle class that still exists in Nigeria, which is totally opposite to the way a normal nation should be. The nation should always have a huge middle class, but
Hmm.
it wasn't the case. So no, but boarding school was cheaper for the parents.
Well, really?
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. Because that means the parents could work. There's no daycare. You don't need to worry about anything else. The kids are in school, boarding school most of the time. You go to work. You just do what you have to do. So it was cheaper. It's not the fancy boarding schools, and I should actually caveat that, right? It definitely wasn't the fancy boarding school. Like, to give you context, right? I was really chubby when I went to school, when I went to boarding school, but I slimmed down because there wasn't enough food, So definitely wasn't fancy boarding school.
oh my goodness. Well,
Well, yeah, go ahead.
well, no, that was good because you used to
Yeah,
look really chubby, but you
yeah.
ain't chubby no more. It's like you slim
No,
now.
no,
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm not. Now I'm very skinny. I'm very athletic. One of my side passions or hobbies is fitness. So yeah, I'm seriously into fitness. I couldn't. I don't think I'll be able to even just write the book without the fitness. As I said, that time when I was writing the book, it was very compressed, and head down, typing for like 4 hours a day, and fitness helps
Mm-hmm.
because you go, you work out, you recharge, you come back, you can keep going.
Okay, good.
I know your book again, Seven Basic Wealth Strategies.
Yeah.
So we're not going to try to discuss all seven, but we would like to maybe get two or three that we
Okay.
can provide to the audience and kind of let them kind of get that knowledge that you put in the book and kind of
Yeah.
see so they can kind of go out and purchase your book there. So maybe
Yes.
two or three, whatever's comfortable for you.
Okay, no worries. So I'm gonna start with chapter one, and I actually wrote it in that order so people kind of get the right structure when you're thinking about things. And
Mm-hmm.
the one talks about setting goals. Okay, so not many people are very good at this, and look, it's hard, right? Because people are struggling to survive, people pay off credit cards. So it's think about 10 years and what that looks like. You're like, oh no, I'm not. I just want to pay this off. I just want to get ahead now. So the first chapter talks about goals, and he talks about 10-year goal planning. Okay, and the
Oh.
reason, yeah, it's very important, the 10-year. And the reason for a 10-year goal plan is, 10 years is so far ahead that we always underestimate what we can get, what we can do, how we can achieve
Mm-hmm.
things. So we write down something. I always tell people, write something ambitious, but not unachievable. Okay. So I know someone that say is earning $50,000 per year, they can push that amount to 10, 20 times. That's fine in a 10-year period. It's not going to happen in 2, 3 years. So, that's
Mm-hmm.
so have good 10-year goals that are ambitious and achievable. Okay. And what that does as well, it almost starts to set a picture for you that, okay, well, okay, I can see how I want life to be. I can see how that would happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then you want to chunk down. Okay. So you've set a 10-year goal. Now you want to chunk down to year 9, year 8, all the way back to year 1. Okay.
Wow.
Now, a year from now, what goal do I want? How do I need to behave as a, look, I'll say as a parent, as a father, as a team member, whatever. How do I want to behave now to get to my 10-year goal, but with baby steps?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So chunking that down to the 1-year goal, you then put in the book as well the questions to get people thinking. Because some people are like, oh, I don't even know what I should put in down. Things like how much spare time do you want? How much passive income do you want? How much you want to be earning a year? What does your fitness look like? All those are questions there that actually get people thinking. So by the time you have that 1-year goal set, the 1-year goal as well should be something very, very achievable. So you can't double your income in 1 year. No, it's not going to happen. So you know, it's very hard for most people to just say, okay, I'm going to double my income. Very, very hard.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's not too hard to go 10%. The small things you can do to go 10% better. Save 10% more. Invest 10% more.
Mm-hmm.
Spend 10% more with your loved one. Spend 10% more time with the kids. Whatever it is, it's 10% is doable.
Mm-hmm.
50 is a struggle. 100% you're going to give up after 2 months.
That's right. That's a hard goal to make.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, and that's what people don't understand, and that's why it was key to start with. Okay, what are your goals? Now, once you've put out your goals, once you've written your goals, the next thing after that is I wanted to get people to understand. Okay, what are the blind spots? Okay, because we all have blind spots. Everyone, I do. I'm working on mine. Some I don't even know about yet until it's pinpointed to me. But the book talks about biases. Okay, and in finances, in life, generally we have like 3 principles we work with: health, wealth, relationships, and we addressed those 3 in the biases section. So we put down questions that gets people thinking, do I have a bias in this section of life? Okay. And one of the biases I'll just talk about briefly is called endowment bias. Okay. So endowment bias is when you value something more because you have it. If you did not have that thing, you won't value it that much. An
Okay.
example would be like an old car you really like and it's just your car. I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
that will get that. Or,
Mm-hmm.
for
I
yourself,
do.
there might just be an old item in the house or clothing or just something you just really like. And you're like, yep,
Mm-hmm.
that's value. It's like, well, that's bias. And it's good for people to recognize that that's a bias and then, mitigate that bias. So an endowment bias is an emotional bias. An emotional bias is hard to eliminate because it's not lack of knowledge, it's just the way you feel. So it's hard to get rid of feelings that easily. So in the book, we talk about different biases, and that endowment bias is one. And the same thing works in finances. You might have either a system that you already work with, or you might have even an investment that you already have and you just love it, but it might not be the best for you. So that's an endowment bias you have there. Someone might be very used to getting your paycheck, spending most of it, and maybe just whatever is left, that's what they save. So that's an endowment bias. That's the system they're using. Because for savings, generally you should put away the amount you want to put away first before actually spending. So people get that small method backwards sometimes, which doesn't help. So yeah, biases, and we covered about I think 8-9 of them out there. So it's it's very very important. And the book as well is a little bit reflective. So we ask you questions, then get you thinking about, okay, do you have a bias? And once you answer them, you would see that, okay, well, I do have a bias. And in there, I always tell people, don't go from zero to hero. Don't think that you fix everything. And no, I need to do this. I've read this book now. And yes, I'm going to fix it. It takes time. It takes effort. And you need to also work with people around you.
Okay, so with the blind spots, how does that hurt someone financially?
Yeah, so I'll name a few other bias which would probably make it a lot clearer. There's one called herd mentality. You'd have probably heard of that before. That is pretty much when you just follow what other people are doing.
Oh,
Yeah. So think about Mr. Jones down the road, Mr. Jones, and hopefully you don't have a Mr. Jones down your road, but yeah, Mr. Jones down the road, bought an investment or bought something and you want the same thing. That's just you following what other people are doing. You're not really thinking, do I need this thing? Does this help me get to my 10-year goal? Does this help me get to my 1-year goal? So that's how it affects finances, because you just do what other people are doing versus thinking, okay, what is best for me? And that relates to even just the way people either pay down debt or the way people manage money. They might just be following what other people are doing without really thinking, okay, why am I doing this? What should be done? And what's the best process around that? So that's one. There's another one called mental accounting. So pretty much that one is when you get money, let's say bonus, or you win some money. People treat that mentally different from if they got a salary.
they
So
do.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so people treat lotto money a lot different from the money they worked for, but it shouldn't be that way. Money is money. So it's teaching people that, well, that's a bias that, okay, if you have, or if you have noticed, then you have. As I said, everyone has biases. So yeah,
They do.
yeah.
Wow. So I know, because I'm sure you got a lot of clients that you kind of use the 7 strategies on. That's how you came up with your book. So
Yes.
with some of your clients and this is an example, with some of your clients, what are some of the most key things that you see
Yeah.
based on the 7 basic wealth strategies when you're kind of helping your clients? What's some of the things, some of the barriers that you see with the client?
Yeah. So one of the things that I see, and one thing I always preach, and this is actually chapter 3, is cash flow. So just how you manage your money. Okay, because most people that are earning might just be spending above your means. Going back to why successful people don't
Yes.
really feel that successful. So that's the one thing I just preach with them every time. Is like, you have to be able to spend within your means. There's just no way around that if you want to get ahead. Okay. Well, the other way is working a lot harder, but it's like, well, that defeats the purpose, because you can still work harder and still spend a lot more. So you need to
Yes.
train in on that.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing I see a lot with people, and it's funny because people that may be on the lower end of earning but save feel more financially confident, more financially free than people on the high end but spend everything, because there'll be pressures when you're spending too much. Okay? So that's one thing I preach with clients. That's one thing I get them to address and zone into. And the book does a good job as well, because in this kind of situations, you want to kind of segregate your accounts. So you have, your normal accounts, transactions where things are paid from. You have your short-term goal accounts. You have your discretionary accounts, and then you have your long-term account. Okay. So I'll just talk about them very briefly. Short-term account are all the things that will come up, but we don't know if and when. Okay.
Right.
And
Okay.
small things like I always use the blender. I don't know why. It's like a bad blender. You don't know when you're gonna get one, but you're probably gonna get one, and you need to replace it. And if you don't have money for that, that's when the small things. Oh, I'll use the credit card. That's fine, and it just builds on that. So short-term
Oh,
account. Yeah, short-term account is putting money away every time that you're gonna use for all these short-term items that come up, but you haven't planned for. or it might be a broken couch, a broken bed, whatever. It's like you need to replace it. If you're not putting money away, that will affect your normal flow of money in the month.
Yes.
Okay? Then I love the discretionary account. Discretionary account, because I always tell people cash flow or spending plan is a lifestyle. It's not I'll do it for 6 months, I'll do it for 5 years and I'm good. No, it's a lifestyle. So
Okay.
in the discretionary account, this is your money where you spend on anything you want. So it might be about 5 to 20% of your normal income. Okay, you spend it on whatever you want. So for Johnny, it's like Teresa shouldn't tell you what you spend the money on, and for Teresa, Johnny shouldn't say you spend it on whatever you want. There's a small budget, and it works very well for couples, right? Because it's like, yeah, you just do whatever you want. You want to go buy a bike, just ensure you've saved enough for it in your own discretion. Then you go buy a bike. You want to buy some red bottoms, Teresa? You save for that in that bucket. Go buy. No one tells you anything, but it has to come from that bucket. So that's the discretionary account because it's a lifestyle. Okay, and all of a sudden people become very accountable because they're like, oh, okay, cool. No worries, I'll save 6 months time. I'll go buy whatever I want done.
Right.
And then the last one is the long-term bucket. This is your long-term investment money. This is the money that gives you financial freedom long-term. So you invest it, comes back into all the other buckets, and it just works wonders. It becomes a virtuous cycle. I should start calling it a victorious cycle, right? So.
Victorious cycle.
It could be that.
Yeah. So, that's one area we help clients with, and that's chapter 3, cash flow, spending plan, ensuring you're managing your money properly.
Okay, and that is wonderful. And Victor, before we let you go, can you
Yep.
give the audience 3 ideas or 3 principles that you think that they can use to improve their financial situation?
Yes. Okay, good one. I'll say first one is definitely just understand yourself, like understand your triggers. And sometimes, even with my clients, I ask questions to help them, but you know yourself better. You know when you spend, when you shouldn't spend, and you can sit down and think about it. When last did I spend that? Okay, so understand yourself, because you master yourself, you master the world, right? I think that's the same, yeah, something like that. So it's the same with your finances. So really understand yourself. Second thing as well is just ensure you save before you spend.
Okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, that's good.
If you spend before you save, you ain't gonna save anything.
That's right, because it's gone.
Yeah. And I guess the third one is being what's the word? Being accommodating, being okay with yourself, because everyone falls off, and once you fall off, jump back on, stay longer. That's the plan. So even if you do this for 1 week and you jump off, next time do it for 2 weeks. Before you know it, you're doing this for years. So it's like, yep, that's fine. People make mistakes, things happen. If you in a tough situation and you jump off the strategies or whatever, jump back on. Just jump back on.
That's a good idea.
All right.
Okay.
I like it. Well, Vic, hey, listen, thank you for your time here on Bartelle's Money Talk. And if someone would like to reach out to you and purchase your book or just want to get some advice, how would they do that?
Yeah. So amazing. So one thing we do as well, we get questions, and look, it's always general advice because we're licensed advisors. We can't just give advice without knowing the person's situation. I love answering questions on my podcast, so they can send me questions. If it's relevant, I can just answer them generally, give them tips. So that's one way. Just send me an email, and you can email me at admin@cfvservices.com.au. However, I am on all socials, so if you just go and type in Victor Idoko on Instagram, you'll see me. My handle is I am Victor Idoko. So I am on Instagram, I am on LinkedIn, okay? And generally as well, email would work, and you can jump on our website, cfvservices.com.au. However, you can purchase the book door to door on Amazon. We're on Audible as well. So, if you're a listener and you want to listen to that, you can listen to that on Audible, which is amazing. So we're on Amazon and Audible.
Okay, show us the book again, please, and tell us the name.
Yes, there you go. So it's called 7 Basic Wealth Strategies for a More Rewarding and Fulfilling Life. And that's me at the back there. I'm actually wearing the same jacket today. So
That's okay. That means you saving money.
Hey.
Okay.
All right. Well, Victor, thank you again for joining our show, and we really appreciate the wisdom and the knowledge that you provided. And the audience, if you like it, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, and that way you can get more content coming your way. So again, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Amazing. It's been great being on the show.
You're welcome. Thanks again.